Hey everybody, Mary asked me to put together an example of what a virtual lesson might look like, how it would kind of flow. The thing about Zoom is it's really easy for students to opt out, to turn their camera off and completely disengage. So I wanted to just showcase how I'm thinking about making it more interactive and collaborative, with that goal of keeping students engaged so that they're not opting out. This is not how everybody teaches, but it's an example and maybe it'll give you some ideas. So I just want to call out, as you're going to see the lessons, this is my syllabus, and there's three main standards or skills from the visual arts standards that I'm trying to hit with the class. One is I want them to analyze artists from the past and present and make connections. Another is I want them to practice the artistic process that an artist goes through, which is coming up with ideas, sketching, collage. We'll be practicing some skills around that. And then the third one is actually generating a work of sculpture using hand building techniques. So those are the big three, and I'm going to hopefully hit all three of those in my first lesson that I will be showing you. I wanted to show everybody 2 weeks of lessons, how I sort of laid it out and structured everything in order to really maximize that when they are there, how are they interacting with each other? How am I making the Zooms engaging? And then how am I structuring the time they are not with me? So you can see this is the lesson template that Mary has kind of pushed out to all of us. I very much customized it for how I like to teach and how I like to flow. I changed it to landscape. I changed a lot of the colors. I added a box here to lay out the task for the 3 days. I just felt like that was important. I also have spots where they can turn in things right at the bottom to make it really seamless. I have my assessment right here. So I did structure it a little bit differently, but that's okay. I just need to change it for how it worked for me. And you can see our weekly focus is just really to build community within our classroom space, to review the syllabus, and talk about how we can make it so everyone feels comfortable participating on Zoom. So keeping it really about building community and safety online is what the week is sort of about. You can see for the 2 days they're with me, I call that class time because I think synchronous and asynchronous are not really kid language, so I have class time and independent work. For the class time, I had everything we were going to do listed here, and it was just a lot. So I now have an agenda that I'll bring up at the beginning of class quickly just to ground us in what we're doing. And then you can see our first day, we're just going to do inclusion, get to know each other. And then I want them to really start thinking about how can they participate on Zoom and feel comfortable doing that, since this is a really different way of engaging with each other. And I also want them to review the class syllabus. So I'm not just going to read it to them while they're on Zoom. I'm going to have them do that independently because, again, when they're there, I want them to be kind of engaging with me and engaging with each other. So in order to kind of collect the information about Zoom, I have an exit slip that I designed. And it's just asking them, like, how do you feel comfortable participating on Zoom? What do we want to avoid? What do you think would help other people feel comfortable participating? Just to get them really thinking about some of those agreements we maybe need to make. And then I have my class syllabus, just me going through it, video linked right here. And that's what they need to do by the time I see them the next day. This will kind of also serve as that 2 times a week formative assessment that the district is asking us to do. I think it's a 10% weight versus the project is a 90% weight. So this will give me that little quick check-in that I can reflect on Infinite Campus just to confirm and hold kids accountable for what I'm asking them to do. They have to actually produce something. So then the next day we'll process the syllabus, any questions people have, and then based on what they said in Zoom, we're hopefully going to build some Zoom agreements. So I built this guy. And here's some examples, but really what I want them to do is talk in kid language and for us to build those agreements together. It may be that the class really wants to use the chat feature and don't really want to be talking to each other. It may be that they need cameras off, but we want to hear each other's voices. So we can discuss that as a group and see what people want to do and hopefully come to some agreements of what will help everyone be able to engage. So then my little learning check that'll go on Infinite Campus is just a quick question, and it's going to look something like, do you understand the task for the next 3 days? Do you need any support? It's very easy to do that on Classroom. And those little learning checks are going to be measured by just a little mini rubric. It's just asking, did they generate a response? Can I understand it? And do they address the question? So quick 3 points, easy to assess. And again, it's an accountability tool that they're not just turning off the camera and checking out, but I have a way of knowing that they're taking in the information. So then you can see for the asynchronous learning, it's independent work time, but over those 3 days, they have a task, and it's watching the introduction to my Project One video. Again, so I'm not just talking at them about the project, but they're doing that on their own and bringing their questions for us to engage with each other next time I see them on Thursday. So that's their sort of thing they need to do, is watch that video. So here's my second week of ceramic class, and this is where I introduce my first lesson. My first lesson, the rubric for it is down at the bottom of the lesson plan. And you can see the goal of the project is to generate a vessel that, if found on an archaeological dig, would tell the story of you. So a vessel is just a simple form in ceramics that has kind of interior space. Could be a vase, could be a bowl, could be a cup. So it could be a lot of different things, and it's found in pretty much every culture across the world. So they'll be creating this vessel, tells the story of them, and to do this, we'll explore how cultures express identity through vessels and practice planning the work and building it with sculptural materials. So my lesson hits on the main skills I'm really thinking about, which is exploring artists, practicing coming up with the idea and planning it out, and then actually building it. Now the identity part, I'm trying to be more intentionally bring in anti-racist practice into my teaching, and identity exploration and healthy identity formation is an important aspect of that. So creating opportunity for that reflection and bringing in a person's history to reflect upon is something I'm trying to do with this lesson. The other thing that hopefully you'll notice is in the artist study part of this, where they're going to learn about different artists who use vessels. I'm really trying to find artists of color who are exemplars in order for students who are maybe not white to feel seen in the lesson, but also to change that narrative where we're talking about people of color as oppressed or overcoming obstacles, but just they're amazing and they're exemplars of this type of work. So again, changing that narrative. So you'll see that hopefully in this lesson. That's what I'm trying to do. So in terms of passing, again, hitting the 3 things, also exploring identity. Here's how they're going to pass. That should have been expressed in that video that they were supposed to watch about the project. And for this one, I have an agenda, again, because it was just too much to have everything in that little box. So to kick off class, I'm going to have them do a Jamboard. And it's a really open-ended question of how do artists express themselves through artwork, just to get them thinking about what are the different ways artists do that. And then I'm going to have them kind of process what are they excited about for the project and what are they wondering about, and hopefully we can do some sharing. And then the next thing I'm going to have them do is a group activity where they're trying to understand what a vessel is. I intentionally didn't describe it in the project video. So I have an activity they'll be doing. I'm going to do probably a breakout with this. So there's images of many different vessels, and I want them to think about these questions of what do they have in common, what are different, is an artist trying to express anything, and how would you define it? And then we'll come back together and discuss our findings of what we think a vessel is. And then the daily task, again, this is that accountability piece, is they have to fill in those questions, and I'm going to check just to make sure, again, that they're engaging and they're understanding what a vessel is. And that's going to go on Infinite Campus using that little mini rubric I have down here. So 3 points I'll be looking at, did they fill in the questions on that reflection activity? In theory, because we did it as a group and we talked about it, they should have lots of ideas to fill in those questions. So then the next day when they come back, the inclusion I'm going to have them do is, again, previewing to keep it appropriate. I'm going to have them very quickly look in their home for a vessel and then to just show the class quickly, again, to get us thinking about, okay, we discussed what a vessel was, what do we remember about it? Almost everybody will have something like that in their home. And then we're going to jump into something called an artist study. So these are contemporary artists who create vessels, but they also explore identity. And again, that's where we're headed with this, is they're going to be creating a vessel that explores their identity, and I want them to get some ideas looking at what other artists have done. I'm thinking they'll work in a pair, but if we have that student who really just wants to work by themselves, I think that's fine too. And they'll be opening up this artist spotlight document. And I went through and found multiple artists who are exemplars of using a vessel, but also kind of telling a story about them. And then if there's someone who just wants to find their own artist, this was a great resource of artists, different artists who use vessels and why. And then there's questions I want them to think about, of what's the function, what's the story the artist is trying to tell, how do they finish the work, what's the emotion they're conveying. And this is something where they'll engage with the artist. Many of them are very engaging videos, which is fantastic. So they'll engage with the artist, they'll answer some questions. And the point of it is that once we've kind of completed this artist study, we can share out to each other and hopefully get some ideas that'll spark our own identity exploration through the project. I do have an exit slip for this one, specifically because they're going to be talking to each other and I want to know if they're okay with that. So I have, do you understand the next 3 days? But I also have, are you comfortable presenting? Do you need support? Are you confused? So if they fill out this exit slip saying any of those things, I have a chunk of time to quickly check in with them. And then again, for those days I don't see them, their job is to complete that artist study sheet and kind of prepare to share out to each other. And that's the thing I am assessing, is that artist spotlight sheet. The last thing I want to show you is just sort of my unit planner, just so you can get a picture of kind of where I'm going and how I'm pacing it. I've redone this. This is probably my third time because I'm realizing that 30 minutes on Zoom is maybe not a lot of time. So I was putting way too much in each day, and I really want to make sure to make the pacing appropriate for students so they don't get super overwhelmed. So I kind of described the first 2 weeks to you. The third week, we would present on our artist study about the vessel form and how it expresses identity. And they probably would have some sort of note catcher where they could catch how do artists express identity and then make the jump to how am I going to express my identity, and is there anything I can borrow, whether it's patterns or shapes or the function has meaning, or there's certain images on it, hopefully to just get them thinking about it. And then I want them to kind of share their thoughts on what part of identity and how they want to lay out the vessel, demonstrate some sketching techniques for their vessel, and have them then generate a plan for the work. And this catches with the standard of visualizing a work using a planning process. And then our week 5 would be sharing out our sketches in kind of a consultancy model where they get positive feedback and wonderings from students to just help them kind of shape the final piece, and then actually learning how to build it using hand building techniques. And then a really important step I'm going to try to do in my classes is stopping to say, how was that? Is there anything that you really enjoyed? Is there anything we did that you didn't? So that I can kind of shape the next lesson. For example, they might really not have enjoyed the artist study, or maybe they did, and it would be good to hear that information because then I can shape how we go moving forward. So I hope this was helpful. This was really hard for me to think through because I've never taught this way before, where there's a synchronous and asynchronous component. So hopefully it helps you kind of visualize the pacing of your classes. And thank you for taking the time to watch my video.